I know everybody I talk to hates these robocalls. They're happening all of the time. What are we doing about it? The FCC has made some changes and they just went into place. So we're going to talk about stir shaken right now. Of course, the government has to come up with some really cute acronyms, and that's what stir and shaken are. But here is what's happened. We have the ability to, over TCP IP, send phone calls. In fact, my phone, I have a phone that's hooked up to T-Mobile, and it is using Wi-Fi. So when I'm making a phone call, it is going over my Wi-Fi in the office or at my house or wherever I am. It doesn't even use the regular cellular network unless it has to. Why? Because it's all TCP IP. And then on top of it, sometimes with LTE and now always with 5G, you are using TCP IP. So your voice is converted into a digital signal right there on your phone, and it is handled as data, just like pretty much any other data would be handled. Now, our cell phones, of course, for a long time have been digital and have been encoding it, but they have not been using it as regular TCP IP. So what the Federal Communications realized is, since most of the traffic that we have on our phone networks nowadays is actually internet traffic, it's TCP IP, why don't we add a little bit to the protocols? And they came up with this whole new way of being able to track the originator of a phone call. Right now, if you have a landline, this is not going to benefit you at all. And we're going to talk about the different carriers here, but they don't have to comply, these landline operators, for another couple of years, although the FCC right now is circulating a petition and is trying to make it so they have to comply more quickly. But the nation's largest phone companies have met this deadline that was set by the FCC to put this new anti-robocall technology in place. But I want to warn you guys, that does not mean that it is going to stop all of these robocalls anytime soon. It's not going to stop. But you might have noticed that at the end of June, there was a noticeable cutback in some of these robocalls. Now, these are the scammers that are calling us and are pretending that they are a local phone number. All right, their biggest trick is, yeah, I've got the same area code and first three digits, called a prefix, as you do, so you should answer that phone. They announced at the FCC last Wednesday that, quote, the largest voice service providers are now using stir-shaken caller ID authentication standards in their internet protocol networks in accordance with the June 30th deadline set by the FCC. This widespread implementation helps protect consumers against malicious spoofed robocalls and helps law enforcement track the bad acts. So I think is a very good idea. It's a step in the right direction. It is going to help a whole lot. AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and U.S. Cellular have all put these in place. In March, the FCC denied petitions for deadline extension from Verizon and U.S. Cellular, saying that they didn't meet the high standard of undue hardship. I think it makes sense. You've got to force these guys sometimes. Verizon was saying that they had a small area of their fiber-based home phone network that would not be able to meet it. So again, it's landline versus the home phone network. Many of us have it. Comcast provides it as well. But basically, if it's IP-based, they didn't have any sort of exceptions. So Verizon is now exchanging the stir-shaken enabled phone calls with wireless carriers. It represents about 80% of the U.S. wireless industry, Verizon said this week. So 80% of them, yeah, you should have seen a bit of a drop. More than 135 million calls a day are currently being exchanged between Verizon and the other carriers with the number of calls that are being exchanged using this tracking technology growing. It's also been deployed on IP-enabled wireline phone networks operated by Comcast, Charter, AT&T, Verizon, and many others. So we're pretty happy about this. We'll see what ends up happening in general. But some companies that carry a lot of robocalls are not yet required to follow this stir-shaken technology and the rules around it, because there's an exemption for carriers with 100,000 or fewer customers. So that's going to be a bit of a problem. But think about how you have to roll out technology. Rolling it out via these big carriers and doing that first, seeing where the holes are in the technology, what's not working properly. That's the way to handle it. And then by having the big carriers do it, they're going to bear the brunt of the expense. Because always, right, those big screen TVs used to be $5,000 to $10,000. I remember $15,000. That's a very big deal. And then it goes down and down. Now you can buy them at Walmart for $300, right? So having the big guys do it first makes a lot of sense. It's going to improve the technology, drive the costs down, and then you can bet that these smaller carriers are also going to be required to do this fairly soon. So the way the protocols are working is they are using tokens and to verify the accuracy of the caller ID. So they're using public key cryptology, for those of you who know what that is, using digital certificates, getting major U.S. companies to adopt it. It really was a very big milestone. I'm very glad they finally did it. By the way, Stir Shaken was ordered by Congress. And FCC Chairman Ajit Pai, you remember him? He did a lot of great things to help out communications, but he was only having voluntary compliance. And so it didn't lead to widespread adoption. So this law really forced them into it, and they're now running it. So we'll see what happens. Small carriers are exempt for now. Landlines aren't doing it. There's a lot of the TDM-based stuff out there. But it's going to happen. There's also a gap in AT&T's network right now. So we'll see what ends up happening. Hey, I want to encourage you guys, if you have not already, to sign up for my newsletter. I don't spam you, right? I'm not one of these robo-spammers that we see out there that are just sending all kinds of garbage all of the time. I put together usually 6 to 8, sometimes as many as 10 articles every week that I think you need to see. And when I put them together, make them available for you, it makes just a huge difference in people's lives. I get thank you notes from everybody, not everybody, I get thank you notes every week from people who read that newsletter, and they thank me for my time and all of the effort that we put into this. This is an effort of love by my wife and I. So do that. It will help. I give all kinds of great advice and warn you about things that are happening right now. Just spend a minute, go to craigpeterson.com, and you'll see right there on the homepage. Scroll down a little bit. There'll be a little red line at the top where you can put in your email address, and I'll sign you up. And I will be sending you some special reports that are really going to help you out right away. So do that right now, craigpeterson.com/subscribe.